Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Podcast 51. Sorry I'm making this episode late, but yeah, last weekend I had a sore throat and it was just hard to talk with that. So, without further ado, I'm going to be doing this episode. I was going to have a guest on, but they can only do it when of course, when I had a sore throat. But that's fine. And yeah, I'll just be doing this solo episode again today. And today we're going to be discussing who is the best living director. Um, Man, there's just so many directors. This list is biased to a certain point because I haven't seen every movie ever, and I haven't seen every movie. There might be other good directors that are not on this list. But yeah, I asked some people on my Instagram pod_cast51. If you haven't go follow me on there, where I'll be posting, stuff about the podcast and questions about movies and be doing stuff like that. Someone recommended me Ridley Scott. I've seen a few of his movies, so I put him on the list. Just watched Alien for the first time. Yeah, so we'll just be jumping all over the place today, but so yeah, I have on my list here, Steven Spielberg, of course, Quentin Tarantino, Tim Burton, Guillermo del Toro, George Lucas, James Cameron, James Wan, Martin Scorsese, John Carpenter, Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan is one of the biased ones. Maybe he made one of the best, one of my favorite movies of all time. Ridley Scott. But yeah, so these are just the top of the people who I think are in these graces of oh, this is the best, these are the best directors. Some of them like Tim Burton, especially like in the 90s, I believe, yeah, like 80s 90s, when he was making movies. Unfortunately, when you get Tim Burton to make a movie, he's gonna add his own flavor to it. You know what, a Tim Burton movie, I think his best work is probably stop motion, animation, stuff like that. I think he dominant, like I don't think he directed, or if he did, he co-direct Nightmare Before Christmas, I think what it was. Yeah, and but yeah, just that animation style, and uh like a lot of that live action stuff, like maybe Charlie and the Chocolate Factory wasn't as, because he's not getting as movies that maybe he wants to do, like maybe Alice in Wonderland. I don't think he is his own thing, but like something like Batman, where maybe it's not the greatest Batman movies, but for the time, this is the first time we get to see a live action Batman. This is the first time we get to see a dark rendition of Batman. Because before, most people, even this is how my grandparents know Batman, is the Adam West Batman, which is fine for what it was at the time. But I think after that, Tim Burton, made Batman and Batman Returns. And then I believe that it was just too dark, and they went with Joel Schumacher, Batman and Robin and all that stuff. So it's it is what it is. But I think that the Tim Burton movies inspired Batman the Animated Series. It led to that. Probably one of the greatest Batman stories ever told. Nothing has ever really topped Batman the Animated Series. If you haven't seen that, go watch it on HBO Max. But yeah, so you could tell if you watch the Batman the Animated Series, heavily inspired by the Tim Burton movies, and the gothic kind of scene. They drew it on black paper to make it more dark and grimy, and but yeah, there's certain movies where Tim Burton won't fit. Where like he was doing a Superman movie with the guy from Ghost Rider. I can't even remember his name. But yeah, you guys know who I'm talking about. And Yeah, some of those movies where it's he's just not gonna fit. He's gonna add his own, gothic kind of feel or whatever, and that doesn't really translate to everything. Whereas, like it translates to maybe Batman, maybe not Superman. Like how I was gonna have maybe Zack Snyder on the list, but he is more of a visual direct. Like his movies are so visually appealing, but maybe the stories lack of the story, like Superman. Maybe he wasn't the best director. I did like Man of Steel. Don't get me wrong, I did like Man of Steel, but I guess I can see why it's a little bit more dark. For a character that's more light and upbeat. Maybe for a Batman, um, it was great, but maybe for a Superman, it wasn't. For the Watchmen, it did great. Like the visuals for the Watchmen are, I think, 300. Batman versus Superman, Justice like when Zack Snyder's Justice League looks phenomenal. It looks way better than the Joss Whedon one. But his more is visual, but the reason why I didn't have him on my list is because his stories maybe are lacking, where his visual is just so like if his storytelling was as good as his visuals, that that's awesome. Another one, someone who else made, another Batman movie, the Dark Knight trilogy, as they call it, Christopher Nolan. I don't know if he's the best director of all time, but I think you had to put him in there. He's one of those. The reason I like Christopher Nolan, this is a biased one. The reason why I like Christopher Nolan is he likes to do stuff. He likes to build, like for Inception, especially. He likes to build instead of using CGI. Maybe he does use a little bit of CGI, but where if he can build a set and make it look like not make it CGI, he'll build a set. And so, like when I think in that bar scene or whatever, when they're in the dream, when it's like flipping all around, or when they're fighting, the he built a set to like maybe he built a set to he didn't physically build, but he wants more set pieces instead of CGI. Um, which I'm not saying that disqualifies someone who uses CGI. I'm just saying in this day and age when you don't use CGI, you want to use actual stage sets and use that to your advantage. I just recently watched Dunkirk, awesome as well. But Christopher Nolan, sometimes his stories are sometimes all over the place. Like Inception, for example, like only Christopher Nolan understands what Inception was really going on. Like the storytelling was like, and I love this the movie, but it was just like this is a dream, and then this is not a dream, and this guy's in his dream and another dream, and but again, his director style is going to work for different stuff, like the Dark Knight trilogy. What he did for that one made Batman more realistic. It brought it a more realistic tone. And but yeah, the thing I have with Zack Snyder, that I'm gonna go on a rant right here. But the thing I have with Zack Snyder, he's like, oh, people were saying, oh, that's not our Batman. That's not how Batman would act. And he was like, oh, yeah, this is a different interpretation of Batman. But like, well, if you're gonna do a different interpretation, I think you should do the Christopher Nolan way, where don't use the costume from the comics, don't use storylines from the comics, use something different. Like, of course, these all Christopher Nolan stuff is from the but Batman vs Superman, that's the Dark Knight, and you're using the Dark Knight costume, or the Dark Knight Batman suit, um, using Death of a Superman kind of storyline. So don't use those storylines. Maybe use a unique storyline where Christopher Nolan made it clear that this Batman is more realistic. This is going to be a more realistic Batman. This is not, no one's going to really have powers where, in Bane, he didn't, in the comics usually, has Venom, and that makes him bigger and stronger. Or in this one, he was, just a guy. I guess they tore his face off because he's helping Talia al Ghul. Of course, these are people from the comics, but he made it clear this is not interpretation from the comics. Um, and this is the first Batman live action movie Batman that can actually turn his head. Yeah, and Batman Begins is, of course, I like that suit, but my favorite, all time favorite Batman suit, live action Batman suit, is the Dark Knight Batman suit. And it, clearly enough, I think it's in the top 100 movies of all time. And he just did a phenomenal job. And maybe he didn't get reach the height of with the Dark Knight Returns, but I think that's what it's called. Yeah. But yeah, he did a phenomenal job with that series. Made it more grounded. So I think with more like with different directors, when they do certain type of movies, it works. When they do another type of movie, it doesn't. Another honorary mention, because he hasn't really directed a lot. So I think when he directs more, then I could put him on the list, more. But I think this honorary mention, um, what's his name? Oh my God, why am I forgetting this stuff? I really can't. Jordan Peele, sorry, Jordan Peele, Us and Get Out. Uh, I feel like the horror genre doesn't get enough credit. Maybe a lot of people who watch horror, or but I think a lot less people watch horror than maybe other stuff, um, because it's very market where. And I was the same. I didn't really watch horror until just recent, just a few years ago. And a lot of the stuff I was watching, maybe I know a lot of people are like, oh, you need to watch the earlier stuff. You need to watch the early 2000s or the 80s or 90s horror. Now is not as good. I watch I started watching horror, so I watch different eras. And a lot of the modern horror stuff is uh I've discussed it in like the last few episodes, but a lot of the modern horror stuff is um like uh jump scary, like the story just wants to set up a jump scare where it goes silent and then a big bang and then it goes, my all right, I know when the scare is gonna come. I don't want to know when the scare is gonna come. They make, stupid decisions, and I think that it's not like, oh, don't go in that closet. Like, no normal person was gonna go in that closet. No normal person is gonna go in that garage. No normal person is just gonna be like, why don't we just get out of here and run? Where Jordan Peele, like especially in Get Out, where it had a creepy vibe. It was no like a lot of jump scares, but there was um he made the story seem more like he couldn't really get out until it was too late. He couldn't really, there was no really like ominous signs or paranormal activity really going on, but just the vibe and the creepiness and the um well, they take his genetics or whatever, but it didn't really seem like a normal person wouldn't be like, oh, I'm gonna go, I'm not gonna stay here, why would I stay, like no really big clues didn't come until it was already too late. um and I think that's a very good story, very good storyteller. Get Us was very creepy as well. He's like, what's my biggest fear is having someone just look like me and whatever, and that's his biggest fear or something like that. It's for twins or something. No, but I get that fear, like, oh, what if someone there's like a clone of you and then they do or whatever. And I think that one was very creepy as well. I think when he does more stuff, like now he's doing, I don't know if he's directing Candyman, but I know he's like, at least a producer or something like that on there. And so I think when he does more movies and gets, refines his craft a little bit more as well, I think that he can be, in the top directors, because I think his movies are really good. I think that's why a lot of people want him to direct more horror. Like James Wan. James Wan is very good at horror as well. When a lot of people, say, the top directors, James Wan doesn't really come up in the conversation. But I think it should. I think it really should. Uh, all the horror movies that he's done, and I watch some of them. They're very creepy. They're very good. They're very like the Saw. He's responsible for the Saw franchise or the I think Insidious franchise, and what he does with the horror and all that stuff is really cool. And I like how he um he went to another genre of he directed Aquaman. Aquaman was I really liked Aquaman. Maybe the story wasn't the best, but he did make Aquaman look cool. I like the visuals in Aquaman. Uh, that one was more of a visual movie, but I think like when you're a horror director and you transfer it to somewhere else, I think you could there's the you understand maybe like the scenery and understand where to go, just how to build a story, and it's just a different flavor, if you will, of a movie when when someone who is usually directing horror movies directed a different genre movie, and it's but it gives different flavor to already cookie cutter superhero template that we already have, and so it's maybe just a little bit different, and I guess there is a boss battle at the end, and but I think there's different flavor when someone from a different genre directs this, and it's just I think it's just cool, and I think it shows his skill of when you direct a few different genres of movie. John Carpenter. um I just wanted to mention him. The Halloween movies. Yeah, they're some of them are not the best. The first one was really good. Um, but yeah, Robert Zombie when he directed, those were okay. A lot of people are like, "Oh, this is not regular Halloween," but I'm like, "Yeah, Rob Zombie's gonna direct something. At least it was different. At least it was something different." But yeah, John Carpenter, Halloween. Like it's just an iconic thing of iconic movie. Um, what else? Martin Scorsese. Uh, you can't have a list. Yeah, he comes up in the conversation of best directors and all that stuff. And but yeah, he directs those same type of movies of the crime movie or mob movies and all that stuff with the Irishman I watched, and all the different Casino and all that stuff. And the 3 hour movies and all that stuff. I think all those mob movies and all this, those are great. I think those are maybe he I haven't seen maybe if he directed something else, I haven't really seen it yet. But I see like all his like mob kind of movies that he's done, and they're all fantastic. I think with the help of all the actors and like Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, um like Michael Francis, I think he said his favorite was like Marlon Brando and like Joe Pesci for like mob, and he was the actual in the mob. So yeah, and but yeah, all those mob movies. The Irishman was really good. The story about Jimmy Hoffa, didn't know who he was, um, and it was Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci. They got all the people in the movie and stuff like that. And yeah, so Martin Scorsese, I think he should be in the top, of people. And George Lucas, okay. If you haven't seen Star Wars, that's okay, but to create something so iconic, so ingrained in pop culture, so like till this day they're still making Star Wars stuff, and the Mandalorian, the new trilogy, the uh, the spin-off, like Rogue One and all that stuff. They're still making Star Wars stuff today. They're still making new characters, the Baby Yoda. I still haven't seen Mandalorian. I will watch it. Don't worry, I will watch it. But something that is so ingrained in pop culture. Like even if you've never seen Star Wars, you've heard references, you know who these characters are. Um and I don't think he's the top one because maybe I think his prequels maybe diminished that a little bit. Um, and now it's oversaturated with Star Wars. There's so many, the Clone War, and there's the video games, and then there's the but of course there are people who love the prequels. I thought they were okay. I didn't hate them. I didn't like love them. My favorite Star Wars movie is not any of the first three. I know people are gonna be like, I can't believe you said that. Why would you say that? It's Rogue One, which is a spin-off or whatever, but between 3 and 4. But yeah, but I have watched every single Star Wars movie. I've seen every single Star Wars movie. I played a few of the video games, and something that's so ingrained in pop culture. So now that Disney owns it, and it's just like, and like the Mandalorian. I heard the Mandalorian is very good. That is save Star Wars or whatever, because the last three movies that they made weren't, especially for big Star Wars fans, they didn't really love it. I thought they were good. I'm not, the biggest Star Wars fan. I don't know every different, Jedi, or every different, person in Star Wars, or the planets, or all that stuff. I didn't play, read the books and play every video game and see every show or whatever. But I know the main cast. I've seen all the movies. I played some of the video games. I haven't seen every TV show like The Mandalorian and all that stuff. So I'm just basing this off, of pop culture and inspiring, till this day. I forget when, like, I think it was in the 70s that and it's still going today strong, and it still has a fandom, and still new people are, enjoying, Star Wars. And I think that's awesome. I think um, I think he does deserve to be in, talks of, some of the best filmmakers, just for, pop culture, ingraining into pop culture alone. Um, we talked about Tim Burton, Guillermo del Toro, one of these directors where maybe he's more known for his character designs than maybe his movies. Um, but yeah, I really like when he directed Blade and Hellboy. I think those are, because I just want to let you guys know I haven't seen every single movie these directors made. I haven't seen every single movie that Martin Scorsese made, or Christopher Nolan made, or John Carpenter, or Ridley Scott, or George. I've seen every George Lucas movie, but I've oh, and George Lucas, he helped didn't he help do Indiana Jones as well? Another thing that's ingrained in pop culture. I think Harrison Ford is just ingrained in pop culture. But yeah, just Star Wars alone, just that franchise is, I think he's just in the discussion when you just make something like that. Guillermo del Toro, I've seen both Hellboys, I've seen all three Blades. I forget which one he directed, which Blade he directed, but I just like that character design that he does. It's not CGI; it's more makeup, more weird kind of thing. Like Hellboy wasn't CGI at all; it was all makeup, and I think it really looked cool. I think nowadays people want something different, and something different is just real makeup, not CGI. And I think that's just the character design of Hellboy, and Ron Perlman is going to be my Hellboy and all that stuff, and the character designs in Blade, and he just has his own kind of feel of when he directs a movie. The character design is going to be probably mostly on makeup and all that stuff. And yeah, I think Guillermo del Toro deserves a shout out on one of the best filmmakers. But yeah, this is again, this is all subjective. I know that oh, I think this director is the best. Oh, I think this director is the best. Hey, you're entitled to your opinion. I know that um some people are going to be more infatuated with one genre than another. I know that most people, like one genre. Some people really like horror movies. Some people, so they might think James Wan might be higher on a list than some other people's directors list. Um, Some people really like stop motion, so maybe Tim Burton, or when Edward Scissorhands, or that type of goth. Like if you like gothic kind of stuff, Tim Burton's going to be higher on your list than some other people's lists. If you don't like mob movies, maybe Martin Scorsese is going to be lower on your list. Um, but yeah, I think I'm just want to give reasons why I think they should be on, like people like around Mount Rushmore of living directors. I know there's so many, because I said directors. I know I've seen some other videos where it said filmmaker. Then there's so many different aspects of to make a film, so it's not just a director, and it'll just be a whole bunch of people. And I said living director because there are so many other, there's just so many other directors who are not living. John Hughes would be on my list. Uh, Alfred Hitchcock, and these other directors are, I just wanted to narrow it down. I try to, do movies that I've actually seen and can give my opinion on of some of these directors. So, um, it's gonna be a little bit different. I try to, watch a little bit more of the some of these people's movies, but I watch, enough of these people's movies, so I was like, okay, 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 and I wanted to give why I think that they should be on the list. So yeah, and let me know if you think oh, that person shouldn't be on the list. Oh, that person or this person should have been. Should be on people's list of best director. Just for um box office, stuff alone. I know it's not all about box office. I know there's some movies that didn't make a lot of money. Um, I think like Willy Wonka didn't really make money when it first came. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory didn't make money when it first came out, but then it came out later. There's cult classics where it didn't make money at all when it first came out. Then later it did, made a lot of, it's now on people's best list. I didn't put any really. I think just Tim Burton is like stop motion, but not really animation. But I might make a list of best animated directors, because I think that people who make animated movies like Batman, Master of the Phantasm, or Lion King, or any of the Pixar movies, or Disney movies, or just I think people don't give animation the respect it deserves, and I just realized it now that I think that I need to make a list of animated movies, because those things are it takes talent to direct an animated movie. It's not just for kids. It's not just I think then there's certain genres that maybe get diminished because it's a certain some directors get diminished because they're in a certain genre that's not highly placed in movie culture, pop culture, or whatever. But again, yeah, I'm just trying to see, this is just live action, okay? This is just live action then. And I was gonna title this Steven Spielberg versus Quentin Tarantino, but James Cameron, I got off on the rant. James Cameron, Avatar, um, Titanic, um, Aliens, and but yeah, some these movies are also ingrained in pop culture, and I think Avatar's like the made the most money of any movie of all time or whatever. I think Avengers passed it, but then they Avatar came out again and passed it again. So it was like I think he passed his own movie. I think before the movie was Titanic, which he also directed. So kudos to him. Because I've seen Titanic, I've seen Aliens, I've seen uh, what was it? Avatar. Not Avatar: The Last Airbender. We're not talking about that. We're talking about Avatar. Um, and I forgot Sigourney Weaver was in. Was she in Titanic? No, she wasn't. Okay. Yeah, Leonardo DiCaprio, and yeah, and but yeah, just for the amount of money that his movies have made, and um, just in the box office alone, I think that he should be on the list. And those are great movies. They made money for a reason. It's not just people just didn't, like these movies where like Avengers Endgame, or Avengers Infinity War. People just didn't go watch it once, and it made that much money. It didn't. I know people who watched it for 3, 4 times. So these movies, people went back, people um rewatched it, and I think it says a lot to your to a movie and a director that if you go watch a movie again in a movie theater, that you liked it. You paid, double, so you paid to go see it again. You pay, not double, but I'm just saying you paid to go see it again, so you're giving the movie more money. Because if everybody just watched the movie once, it wouldn't have made that much money. I don't think. Like especially like Avengers Endgame and Infinity War, I think was the one that was like second on the list or whatever. I know people who watched it, 4 times, 4 times, and it depends on depending on the theater. You know, it's upward, up more than $10 a ticket. So upwards of $40 to go watch the movie. And it depends, there was another movie theater, I forgot, it was all interactive where, the seat moves, and, if like it snows in the movie, it like snows in there, in the movie theater, and the seat moves. So like if you're the guy's like like if you're Captain America's like riding on a motorcycle, your seat moves to like kind of like go with like the motorcycle or whatever. $25 a ticket. So if you take somebody else, I took my mom. It cost me $50. I'm not saying that's bragging or whatever. I'm just saying people watch with movies more than once, so they're spending upwards of how much. I go on a rant. I'm sorry. I just wanted to point that out. Now the two biggest directors that like when I asked on my Instagram, this is the two that people said the most. Quentin Tarantino and Steven Spielberg. I'm like, man, these are Goliaths of directors. Like Quentin Tarantino, he said he's only gonna make 10 movies. Because he thinks that when the director gets older, that they lose, something or whatever, and something special. When you make a lot of movies, I think when you're a director who makes a lot of movies, there is going to be some movies that are not great. There are going to be some movies that are phenomenal. But yeah, like Steven Spielberg versus Quentin Tarantino. Like all the Quentin Tarantino movies are awesome. They're fantastic, but he's not making a lot of them. He's not making a whole bunch. But when he does make a movie, you know it's going to be great. Like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Awesome, phenomenal. Of course, there was a little bit, stuff with like Bruce Lee. A lot of Bruce Lee fans, me including. I love Bruce Lee. Love Bruce Lee movies. I think I got, it was UFC 3. I got it just because Bruce Lee was in the game. I was like, I need to get this game. Bruce Lee's just awesome. Another, he's just awesome. And, his daughter didn't, like the depiction of him, but a lot of people argue this is not actual reality of, like, it is kind of reality because I think it was like I forgot which of the murders, like Manson murders or whatever. But it wasn't, how it actually happened in real life. So it's just, so it literally, you can't take everything that he does and say, oh, that's how they were in real life. So, I get that argument, and I know, and it's just, a lot of people who really love Bruce Lee didn't like the way he was depicted in the movie. That's why, one gripe of, one of his movies that all of them are fantastic. All of them are, wonderful. But yeah, Steven Spielberg, man, oh man, Man, oh man, what 80s, 90s, Jurassic Park, Jaws, you know, E.T. Come on. Like come on. His own, a lot of people's only gripe is like maybe his later movies weren't as, spectacular as um his older movies, like Jurassic Park, E.T., Jaws, stuff like that. And I do get, like Ready Player One or BGF. Yeah, Big Friendly Giant. I really, I liked a Big Friendly Giant. Um, but I guess it wasn't as whimsical or as grand as ET or something like that. And yeah, when you make movies that are you know 11 out of 10 and you make a movie that's like maybe a 7 or an 8 out of 10, yeah, it's gonna that number that that discrepancy is gonna because he made so many great movies. um Started the summer, like when you think of when you think of like summer blockbuster, you think of Steven Spielberg. you know you think of Steven Spielberg movies, and all his movies are whimsical and really well done. And less is more. Like what Jaws, they were forced to do less is more. They were forced to do less is more because the shark wasn't. Because if you go on the Universal on tram, and the story. If you go on the Universal tram, the story about Jaws or whatever, where like a lot of the shots of the shark wasn't working, so they had to work around the shark not working. So they did less is more, and it forced them to. I think if the shark actually worked, I don't think it would have been as great as great as a movie. And yeah, I don't think it was be as great as a movie. I don't think it would be as wonderful and scary or whatever. Where less is more, where just the imagination of the shark. And he created a thing where no one wanted to go in the water. He created a fear of sharks. So you know, and E.T. Come on, that went adventure and whimsical and um just that feeling of just whimsical. I just when I think of ET, I think of just whimsical and grand and stuff like that. And that movie in pop culture is great. Like all of his stuff is ingrained in pop culture and stuff like that. But yeah, if you in Quentin Tarantino, I get why some are people think maybe he's the greatest of all time. Because he hasn't really made a bad movie. He hasn't really made a bad movie, but because he selects his, he takes time. You know, he's not doing all. I think if Tim Burton stopped making movies in the '90s, I think he'd be regarded higher. But there's some stuff where he did some. Maybe he didn't want to make those movies, but he's not giving stuff like Edward Scissorhands, or no one's really making stop motion animation anymore, really. So I think um, for Tim Burton to come back, or Tim Burton, I think he needs to do the right movie. Like um, but yeah, and like Christopher Nolan or Zack Snyder, I think they need to do like the right movie. And Martin Scorsese, when he does something, he does to he give him credit. He does stuff to his strength. He does stuff to what he knows how to do. He knows where he grew up, and he does stories about that. And I think that that's great and that's awesome. But yeah, that's my list. Can't really crown because I was saying maybe Steven Spielberg because just the because I see more of his movies, but I see more of his movies. But yeah, they're because I think his great movies outweigh the movies that maybe weren't so whimsical and maybe weren't so grand and stuff like that. I think his great awesome movies outweigh the bad movies that he did, quote unquote bad movies. Because I think if it was someone another director, they would be like, oh, okay, that was actually a good movie. But since it's Steven Spielberg, you're gonna have higher expectation because this guy made Jurassic Park. He made Jaws. He made I know I've seen more. I can't think of any more movies that he did on top of my head. I think he did also help with Indiana Jones and all that stuff. So yeah. And he's friends with George Lucas, and I think George Lucas. A lot of people are like, oh, I think he should direct a Star Wars movie, but I think George Lucas like forbid him to make a. I don't know how true that is, but I just heard that because they're friends and all that stuff. I think they did what was it Indiana Jones, but yeah, I think Steven Spielberg and Quentin Tarantino are like the top two on my list of greatest. And you guys tell me which one you guys think is better, or do you think there's another director who deserves to be who's better than them? Let me know. But yeah, let me know. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to follow me on pod_cast51 on Instagram. Yeah, and then download on Spotify. We're on Spotify. We're on everywhere where you get your podcasts. And yeah, thank you guys. Love you guys, and I will see you guys next week.